Welcome to the Workplace Wellbeing Essentials series. I'm Mari Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this expert interview where we explore topics related to employee well-being. My guest today is Jamie Tessler. Jamie is an occupational ergonomist, lecturer, and educator. She's an adjunct professor at the Tufts University School of Medicine, where she teaches occupational and environmental health to students in the public health and professional degree programs. At Northeastern University, Jamie is busy working to modernize and upgrade the occupational and environmental health and safety training programs and platforms. She is a frequent guest lecturer on occupational ergonomics in area schools of public health. Jamie, welcome. I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Mari, thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, we're going to explore the topic of ergonomics. And I get the sense that not everybody really fully understands what ergonomics really is. So when we use the word ergonomics, what are we really talking about?
What we're talking about, Mari, is a system, and a system with social and technical and structural aspects to it. And ergonomics examines the way humans interact with that system. So you can look at it from a lens of engineering, and you can look at it the lens of occupational psychology, kinesiology, human evolution, essentially. So while ergonomics is often used in little sound bites to talk about a device, a piece of equipment, posture, what we're really looking at is an entire system of human work, who we are in that system, and how our physiological, psychological, and intellectual strengths and weaknesses as humans fit in. And the goals are fairly straightforward: human well-being, worker well-being, and success of the socio-technical system.
Fabulous definition. I love it. It's so broad in so many ways, but at the heart of it, it's all about employee well-being or the person.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
That's how I think about it. I think about it in terms of employee well-being. An employer or a system manager would think about, how do we optimize productivity for success of this industrial operation or business or enterprise? But I look at it entirely as, how can we design work to fit people for who we are, with our cognitive and physiologic strengths and limits? Because ultimately, if work is designed within human limits and humans can thrive within that system, then it's a win-win. That's the theory. In practice, work is designed based on a wide variety of needs and demands. Humans respond to those demands with all different kinds of results. So ergonomics seek to seal that fit so that workers can feel good physically, be challenged, get rewarded for their efforts, be able to meet demands, exceed them, learn new things without causing musculoskeletal, psychological, or other types of harm.
Wonderful. So given that definition, why should employers care about ergonomics?
Ergonomics can be the bottom line because it impacts productivity, well-being, and functionality at work. If an employee is physically uncomfortable, it's going to impact every aspect of her performance. Mm-hmm. If an employee has a workload that exceeds the demands that most people are capable of, it's going to create flaws in the system. People think often of ergonomics as preventing physical injury at work, but I think it's so important to understand that the psychological aspects of how work is organized is an integral part of ergonomics. I work a lot on the musculoskeletal part, but it's so incredibly clear that they're integrated. With so much work, especially in the computer era, being so deeply computerized, people are glued to screens. I think it's more important than ever because of the trends that we're seeing, because of the overwhelming sedentary nature of work, at least in this country, in so many different industries, and all the deleterious health effects that result from sedentary work. I think it's as important as ever and will be extremely important going forward.
Yeah, I would think so. And as you talk about it in the context of this broader definition, we think about the elements that really do impact, quality of products that are being produced, quality of customer service. It really does have direct impact to the operations of a business.
Absolutely. Not only in terms of physical well-being and health costs and absenteeism, but in terms of morale, teamwork, connectivity between people in a work environment. If you look at the psychosocial aspects of ergonomics, we're talking about all the things that you address in your work. Supportive relationships between coworkers, supervisor, employee interactions, how employees are honored and rewarded and recognized. And also, very importantly, what extent do you get to use all your skills and your assets and to build on those? And to what extent is work a place where you grow and you learn and you thrive versus a place where you cower, where you shrink, where you recede?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So I'm curious, what are you seeing as the trends in, if we categorize it as office ergonomics, and what's the science that's emerging in this field?
Well, it's very fascinating to see the tension between the trends and also the fads that are often embedded within trends and what the science is saying. We all know that sitting all day, now we know that sitting all day and sitting all week and sitting during a working life is really not good for you. The challenge is we're all interacting through our computers, and computer work by nature is static. So one of the big trends that we see is the trend towards standing workstations or active workstations. And so the challenge is how do we design movement, physical movement, within a workday that is organized around static computer interactions? How can you get more people interactions? How do you get more physical activity that's embedded, that's just within the nature of design? And one thing we need to remember is that we have the same bodies as hunter-gatherers who walked and crouched and ran and were in their bodies moving all day. And really that evolution is not caught up with the kind of work that a lot of us are doing today. So this is the challenge. And in response, there have been the fads and also some things that are really great. And while the jury is out on the effectiveness of certain kinds of interventions, a couple of things are clear, is that constantly changing your posture throughout the workday, let's say you're at an office environment working at a computer, is positive. Holding every single meeting that you can, reefer and standing, is positive. Taking that, on a practical level, I've done evaluations in offices where everybody had a printer right next to their desk and all they had to do was reach, as opposed to that printer being even 15 feet down the hallway. And so every time I got up to get that page, there is built-in movement that could be held walking. Campuses where people have to travel from location to location. These all add value in terms of building movement, visual variety, interaction. We used to have to get up and talk to each other more often when we didn't have computers. We couldn't instant message or Skype business or send an email. And so what are ways that we can build in more teamwork? So one trend we see is these more open office environments. They've also caused other challenges because of the fact that people need to be able to concentrate and not be hearing and listening to all the other buzz and conversations and music on headphones around them. So the challenge is, how do you build in movement? How do you design so that your posture has to change? It's forced to change. So there was a trend of like bicycle workstations and treadmill workstations, and some health advocates felt like that was a really good idea, but they didn't talk to the ergonomists. That reduces typing accuracy, it reduces productivity, and it kind of doesn't recognize the fact that your forearms have to be static if you're typing into a work environment, into a computer workstation. The other trend too is towards not relying exclusively on the hands for keying and for more voice activation. The problem with that is that creates noise, which then means you need to be in a cubicle or a product station. What I'm trying to do here is name all the tensions and all the conflicts. But what employers need to be thinking about is, how am I going to build in interaction, movement, standing, and walking into the workday? What part of the task can be broken down so a single individual is not doing data entry 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week? How can we diversify the tasks so that we give certain parts of the body a break and that we engage the mind more? These are hot topics on the table.
That's great. Well, it sounds like that's exactly when they need to call you in to be able to help out with these kinds of situations. So, Jamie, if our audience wants to learn a little bit more about you or the work that you are doing, how can they get in touch with you?
Please just check out my LinkedIn page. I'd be happy to respond to some inquiries. And I would also just advise viewers to be extremely careful about the source of the ergonomics advice. Really make sure that you're working with someone who is credentialed. I'd like to just advise listeners and viewers of this video to be very mindful of gadgets and gimmicks, and to make sure that the people who are providing assistance and advice to you have a real understanding of the prevention of work-related musculoskeletal disorders and some insight about the trade-offs in all of these office design decisions, because they are all trade-offs, and there isn't a perfect algorithm, and the jury is still out. But what's very positive and very exciting is awareness that human interaction, human movement, human engagement is an essential part of work design, whether you're inputting medical records 40 hours a week or whether you're a principal in a creative organization. All of these things really matter, and that employees know a lot about what's physically comfortable and not comfortable, and their feedback and their input can really help guide the design process. Thank you.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, thank you so much for being my guest here today, Jamie. Really appreciate the work you do and know how important it is to workplaces to create healthy, thriving workplaces. Thanks, Jamie, for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Mari. Have a great day.